Come on, Jay.
Good morning. You guys ready for this? You know, it's been a great week. Last Sunday was amazing. I found out we had 128 people in attendance. And you know, at the end, we had the response cards and all that. For the men alone, we had 35 men who wanted to study the Bible. So that's phenomenal. Just a great week. Of course, Tiffany got baptized. Now, Tiffany is pretty amazing. She's got more energy than 10 of us, okay? She's just, and you're like, I feel wore out just being around her. I mean, she's just energy. And then, of course, Dylan gets baptized. And I remember saying to him, how tall are you? So he goes to this party that the ladies have, right? So last night they had a housewarming thing. And what do they have Dylan do? Change light bulbs. I can't reach that. It's actually smart, but what do you do? And then the highlight of the week. You guys ready for this? All right, you ready for this? Richard got a haircut. GQ. Wow. Amazing things can happen in the kingdom. Once again, proof that there is a God. All right. Now, last week, when I did the sermon, I shared about some pretty alarming statistics about Milwaukee. And on the news this week, I heard another one that was shocking to me. That up to this week, 50 children have been shot just in Milwaukee. 50 children. And then I heard also an infant got shot this week. And I was just like, oh my gosh. You know, this is like horrendous. And if that doesn't move you, there's something going on in your heart there. Last week I talked about the word compassion, how compassion is going from a feeling to an action. That we need to act on things. Now, in the last year, amongst our many additions, we've had a few children added to the group. Okay, we start with Shernise. She's got 3 kids, right? Brianna, she's got 1 kid. Diamond's got 2 kids. And then Tiffany comes in with 3 more. Okay, and then we got a single dad. Okay, 10 kids. That's huge. That's a huge jump. And that's 10 kids who have an opportunity for us to love them. And an opportunity for them to see a side of God that they're not going to see in the world. All right? We also have a few on our way. Okay, no, we're not pregnant. Okay. Jocelyn is pregnant, right? And then, of course, Tracy, you know. Now, I kind of worry a little bit about the men. You know, Angel, I don't know. He's got to deal with that thing. But Shane, it's a little scary. Okay, so, of course, they're not here. They're away on their 2-year anniversary, right? But do you guys remember the midweek we had where the men were taking care of the kids? Okay, so Shane is trying to take care of Milo. Milo. You got to have a Milo in the church. I mean, and of course, he's trying to wipe his nose, and he wasn't having it, okay? I thought, hey, hang on, this is your future, buddy, you know? So I just kind of smiled and nodded. This is your future. And then it's kind of fun to watch the other guys, like Johnny. He's just a total fish out of water, you know? He's just, what do I do? And then you got Tim Hallmark. Tim's amazing with kids. And he's got these kids mesmerized. He's doing these things and they're like this. And then he does one of these things where he's walking around, you know, I'm going to march in the infantry, fly in the cavalry. And then he goes, oh, slow motion. He's doing this. And all the kids start doing it slow. I'm like, who are you? It's like the Pied Piper or something. I don't know. But I do believe we need to embrace God's heart for the children, all right? Now, over the years, I've been in the church for 30-some years, okay? So we've been numerous times in Kids Kingdom, all right? And in fact, we started the one in Chicago. And what I have found is I learned more about God from the kids than they learned from us. And God allows that to penetrate our heart. And we got to embrace God's heart. Look at Matthew chapter 18. The title of the lesson is The Greatest in the Kingdom. Matthew 18. Starting in verse 1. Matthew 18, verse 1. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a little child and had him stand in front of them. And he said, "I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Wow. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes a child like this in my name welcomes me. But if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to sin. Such things must come, but woe to the man through whom they come. If your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off, throw it away. It is better for you to enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and to be thrown into eternal fire. Wow. And if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and to be thrown into the fire of hell. Wow, pretty intense. Intense little passage. Well, if you notice, this is in red. All right, Jesus said this. Don't hit the messenger here, okay? But the disciples come to Jesus. I'm sure they didn't realize this was all going to come out. And they say, "Who's the greatest?" And Jesus says, "Okay, bring this child to me." And he uses the opportunity to teach us a lot about the heart of man. Point number 1, become like children. Become like children. Now, Alexis is probably thinking, Marvell already acts like a kid. Okay. She didn't say anything there. But Jesus makes this a little bit more specific. He says, you got to humble yourselves and become like children. All right? And once again, it's like we have got to imitate the heart of a child. We've got to learn. We got to be humble to learn from them and change. Because there's something in the process of becoming mature or grown up that we throw those things away that are valuable to God. And he says, unless you become like them, you're not going to enter the kingdom. Wow. So we got to understand exactly there. It says God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And a lot of it comes down to how humble are we? Do we really get advice and get help for our lives? Children don't act like they know. They know they don't know. And I do appreciate the single moms who brought the kids in because they're like, help me. And really, you don't want to do damage to your kids, so you want to have help for them. Kids will humble you out. Your little boy, Billy, there is a terror. Running around, and everybody's like, whose kid is this? And you're like, okay. You try to pull him out of there. How do you deal with this? Well, it doesn't take long to see that the world just doesn't have the answers that God does. It takes loving them. But for us, it's an advice, getting advice thing all across the board. It's getting advice and then taking the advice. Yeah, finances, getting advice, your schedule, dealing with sin, relationships. And do you take that direction? If you ask 10 people, 9 say the same thing, guess what? It's probably accurate, especially if they're spiritual people. Now, there's a passage in Proverbs 12, verse 1. You don't have to turn there. It says, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid. Yeah, it actually says that. They're stupid. And God's saying, don't be stupid. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of people been there and done that. Learn from others' mistakes. The word disciple comes from the word discipline. And it's a disciplined life. And a lot of times we just don't like that because we're lazy. We're selfish. And he says, hey, you got to change your heart. You know, when we were asked to move to Chicago to plant the church, I knew it was going to be exceedingly costly because we had our own business, we had our house, and I knew it was going to cost a lot, but I also knew I needed help for my daughters. Because when you're raising kids, kids aren't really going to talk to dad and mom about their inner secrets, all right? That's a rare bird if that's with you. But I knew that you surround them with godly teenagers, godly campus students, they're the ones that are going to help. And what does it say? It takes a village to raise a child. Yeah, we understand this, but how often do we allow others to really help us with our kids? And there's a fear. The other thing kids do is they trust. They trust, you know, you say jump and they do. They just jump. Have you ever done that? Jump, they jump, and they're ready to go. Kids don't worry. They don't worry about bills. All right? They don't worry about finance. They don't worry about their food, the shelter. But then we teach them to worry. We're the ones, because we're panicking, they're like, oh, it must be bad. And we train them not to be faithful. And then we try to be in control in our lives. And it's another damaging thing we can do to children. We feel like we're the only one who can do it. Let me be in control. I can handle it. I'll figure a way. Versus, help me. I don't know what I'm doing. We don't trust God like we need to. And then we panic and react, and everything's bad, and we blow up and get angry, all sorts of things, because we think we are in control, and we're not in control. You cannot control your situations. You can't control the weather. You can't control what people do. A number of years ago, in the early 90s, Barb and I had moved, and we were in Chicago, and we had just moved from Milwaukee. Our middle daughter was just born that month. So we moved, and then a half a year later, it was January, and finances were bad. And anytime you move, there's a transition, all that kind of stuff. But I still had business in Milwaukee, and I was thinking, you know, I need to go. Well, the weather was bad, and I'm like, I know how to drive. I'm from Wisconsin. I can do this. And Barb was like, don't go. I'm like, don't go. We got kind of into a riff. So then I'm driving, and I hit black ice, and a semi was next to me. Semi loses control, jackknifes, and the back of the trailer comes back, hits my car, spins it around. I hit the shoulder and flip. And I broke my back. Yeah, nothing minor. And it's all because I wanted to be in control. I wanted to force my issue. What I wanted to do. And we get so caught up in this that we do damage to ourselves and others. And what's really amazing, so we get a new used vehicle. 4 more times I get hit in the back by other cars. After that, twice I was at a stoplight. Somebody runs right into the back. Boom. My chiropractor's like, what is going on with you? It's like, well, what happened this week? And it just showed me, listen, I cannot control what people do. Now, I learned a lot in that situation. God will humble us. He'll do what he's got to do to humble you and me to get to our knees. It's very challenging to see what God has to do because we're so stinking prideful. What areas of your life do you try to control? What areas of your life do you try to force and make things happen and do damage to you and other people? And that leads us into the second point. Point number 2, doing damage to God's children. In verse 6, he says, but if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and be drowned in depths of the sea. All right, this is Jesus saying this. And I kind of looked up what, about a millstone. And millstones were, in that time, hundreds of pounds. And Jesus saying, this is how I feel. And we got to understand that we affect others' lives. Now, who are God's children? Everybody. He's not just talking about little kids. It's in general. And when we sin, we affect other people. And he's saying, listen, this is how I feel when you influence bad people for the bad. It bothers him. And here's the question, does your life make people's lives better or worse? There's a book called Integrity. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's by Dr. McLeod. And the word integrity isn't about, being truthful and honest. It's the idea of integrity of like a ship, the strength of a ship. And the whole thing is creating strength in your character. And one of the things he talks about is the wake of a speedboat. And he says you can tell a lot about the boat by looking at the wake. How wide the boat is, how fast it's going, how deep the thing is, all that kind of stuff. And he says as we pass through people's lives, we leave a wake. And he says the question is, what are the people like who are behind you that you've gone through their lives? And he says, are they enjoying themselves? They're doing the skiing thing? Are they having fun? Or are they a bunch of dead bodies who got hit by the propeller? Pretty intense. What kind of impact do you have in your life? It bothers me. There are times when I'll see a little kid swearing up a storm, using profanity. That doesn't just happen. That was taught. And kids are little imitators. And you hear that and you're like, oh my gosh. Now, what's exceedingly humbling is when you're a parent and your kids imitate how you act. And there's many times I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're like, oh, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? Ha ha. It's like very convicting. But I think God does that to move us to realize, listen, you are having an impact. Question, is it good or bad? And Jesus says in verse 7, woe to the man through whom sin comes. Then he talks about gouging out your eye, cutting off your hand, that kind of thing. What's he saying? He's saying you got to get radical. You got to deal with this stuff, and he's very serious about it. This isn't a minor thing. There's a seriousness to his tone. And twice he's talking about hell. He says in verse 8, it's better to enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands, 2 feet, and to be thrown into eternal fire. Wow. And then at the end, it's better for you to enter life with 1 eye and to have 2 eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. Jesus talked more about hell than anybody else in the Bible. Well, you can go to a lot of churches where they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to talk about it. Let's all just be friendly. Let's just hug each other. And let's create this social group where we're happy. But that doesn't help people change. We got to take the medicine also. We got to take the hits in the heart so we will change, because we do damage to so many people. And I see so many people who claim Christianity, but they have a powerless form of Christianity. Why? Because they don't make Jesus Lord. What was that button? Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? You know, if there's electrical shock every time. Hey, okay, all right. I'll. Well, Jesus is trying to shock us here and saying, you influence people. And you need to get serious about it. And that's his perspective. It's kind of like a bear with the cubs. You see a little bear cub. Oh, how cute is that? Let's go play with that. Isn't that nice? Wouldn't that be a great thing to do? Oh, look, he's friendly and he likes me. All right. Look out for that. All right. So it's like a bear with the cubs. Jesus saying, listen, I am protective. And you sense that in this. There's a sense of protection that goes on. Now, I had 3 daughters. All right. And there's many a time the protective juices kicked in. What's going on there? I'll tell you, the teen boys were a little afraid of me. My daughter said I had a look. They called it the Hitler look. I don't know what it looks like, but I know it must be a little intense. All right? And there many times I'd come up, can I help you? What are you doing? You know, and that protective juice is a good thing. And we need to feel protected by God, but by each other. We've got to be helping each other. All right? This is how God feels. Imagine if Victor is seeing Isaac playing over there and some teen comes up and slaps him in the face. What would happen, Victor? Oh, wow. Wow. Get restored after. Okay. Yeah, I would assume that the alien would come out. He'd unleash the Kraken, you know, whatever you want to call that thing. But yeah, that's how God feels when we're treated that way. I just see that. His hair on his back could go up and all sorts of stuff. And it's awesome to know that God feels that way about you and I. That he's like, listen, I'm here to protect you. That's why I have the scriptures. That's why I put people in your lives. That's why I give you the Holy Spirit. That's why I gave you the cross. To show you that I am with you, heart and soul. Are you going to fail? Yeah, but learn from it. Humble out. Get the help that you need to. You know, a number of years ago, Chasey was an infant. And I have a problem sleeping, all right? The problem is I don't wake up. I sleep through everything. Fire alarms, you know, alarms in general. People who snore, and I know who you are. People who snore. And it would drive Barb insane because she would think I was faking it because the baby's crying, you know. She'd be like this, I'd be like this, you know, that kind of thing. One time she woke me up, and I'm holding Tracy, and I don't know, I had to go downstairs for some formula or something. And I'm going down the stairs, and I trip, and I fall. And I am bouncing around on things, you know, but I'm holding on like that with Tracy. And I got cut up. I was a little bleeding and all that. Of course, Barb is like, what is going on? That kind of thing. But that's how God is. God says, I want to put this shield around you. Because that's life. Life is going to come after you. And there's going to be a lot of, you know, falling down. And there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to do that was stupid because you didn't get advice and you were prideful. But I'm still there to protect you. And it's awesome to know that God has the power. If he had the power to create the sun, he can protect you. But sometimes we want to leave that protection because we know it all. We do it our way. It's like that Frank Sinatra song, I Did It My Way. Yeah, how well was his life, you know? And you got to look at, God says, listen, I've got plans for you, not to harm you, but to give you hope in the future. But you got to seek me. You got it with all your heart. He says, I will be found by you. That's a promise. And you can just ask a lot of the new members here, hey, how's that working? Yeah, it is working. You know, Tiffany, you know, she's had a very challenging situation. But the members of the church have rallied around her. Why? Because somebody did it for us. There's a gratitude that comes when you know that God is out for your best and he's suffered so your life will be great. And it's awesome because gratitude creates joy. And gratitude moves us to do the things that God wants us to do. Then that makes other people grateful. Then they do more, and it's just an upward spiral, all because we're becoming like little children. It's becoming emotionally attached, feeling what each other feel. Question, do you feel this way with each other? Well, we need to, because that's God's heart. I want to hold up the leaders a little bit here, who show a genuine concern for the membership. Tracy and Shane aren't here, but, you know, there's a genuine concern that they have for their people. Constantly alerting me, hey, little red flag, heard this is going on, you might want to get in there, okay? You've seen Tracy, she's always grabbing kids and all that kind of thing. But there's a thinking, a thought process there that I so appreciate about them. I think about the homers. Sacrifice time and they drop everything and will run in there. And sometimes they're like, okay, yeah, I appreciate it, but you got to take care of yourselves too. All right? And I think that spirit is the spirit that I'm talking about. Victor and Marlene, they're involved on all sorts of levels. See, when you go on staff, that's what happens. But that's why they're on staff. I think about Johnny and Candace. Now, they're kind of young. Johnny, you know, amen. But they're already owning the campus. Barb and I have kind of pulled off a campus because we're not that young anymore. So we've kind of pulled off, and they're grabbing a hold of it. And they're meeting the needs. And they're getting advice is exactly what you need to do. But that spirit needs to continue to grow. All right? Then you got Keon and Katie. Katie's been around since the earth cooled. All right? And Keon, he's brand new. He doesn't know what he's doing. So it's an interesting thing. Watch that whole setup. But he is a father, so that helps out. But it's fun to watch people mature and grow, and they are leading because of that spirit also. If you're a member, I hope you feel protected. That's our goal. Barb and I want to make sure that you are feeling loved. I want you to feel confident that you can talk to us about anything. Why? Because your problems are our problems. And I believe that that's what God intended this to be. That this is a family, all right? We work together as a team. And it talks about the supporting ligaments. That's what it's all about. And as we grow, we got to continue to teach and train that, but we all got to take it on. So if you hear of anything, you know, don't just, oh boy, that's not good. Huh? Someone needs to take care of that. No. You grab a hold of it. That's called love. That's protecting the other children, okay? In closing, I want to throw out a challenge. I want you to study this out. I want you to study it out because it's important to Jesus. I mean, he made some pretty intense little comments here. He talked about hell. I mean, that's pretty intense. He talked about the millstone thing. Pretty intense. it's important to Jesus, it needs to become important to us. I want you to study it out and own it and make it who you are. We need to all humble out like little children, all right? Why? Because there's a lot of rescuing that needs to be done. We got a lot of work to do in Milwaukee. My prayer is that you'll take the gratitude you have and go after it, and let's change Milwaukee. Amen?